Hey, I'm Jonathan, and I live in London, England.
Hey, I'm Jeff, and I live in Perth, Australia.
Together, we are Ekko and Sidetrack.
We produce music that sounds like this.
And this.
And even this. This podcast is about music, creativity, and everything in between the giant space that separates us.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Ekko and Sidetrack. Happy New Year, everybody. This is Jonathan from Ekko and Sidetrack. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Jeff and I really enjoyed doing this and appreciate you all greatly. We just wanted to explain, we had a week off over Christmas and New Year. And that's why there wasn't an episode last week. So the episode you're about to get is the one we recorded just before Christmas. Or maybe just after Christmas, actually. Either way, it was the one we recorded the week before. And we'll get back to it with a brand new episode for you next week. So enjoy this roundup of 2020 by us, Ekko and Sidetrack.
Jonathan, I'd like to welcome you to the final podcast of 2020.
What a year it's been.
And this would mark the 37th week we have got together and done this. So congratulations, big up yourself.
Congratulations to you, Jeff.
I also just want to make a quick shout out to the dude and his girlfriend or potentially wife that came up at the show at the court on Boxing Day and said he was a big fan of the music, but he was also a big fan of the podcast. And he really enjoyed the way we talk to each other, and he wanted to check on you. And I said you should check out the podcast where you talk a little bit more candidly about what you've been up to and stuff like that. So
thank you, mysterious stranger, for caring about how I am.
He's definitely a fan. His girlfriend even said that she's like, he won't shut up about it, but I've started to enjoy it as well. So that's pretty cool. Not just for
that's good.
Yeah,
that's nice to hear. It's I mean, I feel like every girlfriend I've had that I've spoken to podcasts about, I've felt like that's kind of never happened. I remember I used to talk about, I mean, mostly I'm talking about, or used to be talking about the Rogan podcast, which is, it's not particularly aimed at women massively, and I think some of my girlfriends were a bit resistant to that. But it's nice to hear that women also enjoy listening to us.
I think, if more women want to get in touch and say they like it, please feel free. If anyone wants to get in touch and say they like it, we get a bunch of comments from people, and it always warms my soul and makes me go, oh yeah, cool. This is a good thing that's like worth continuing and worth doing. I mean, we have fun doing it anyway, and we're not doing it for some sort of like...
I'm doing it for financial gain.
It's a tax write-off, Jonathan, let's be honest. No,
well, I mean, I think it also practices... I was thinking about this the other day, that it makes us practice having these one-on-one conversations with each other. Because even when we have normal conversations with each other... Stop biting your nails.
Yeah, I don't know why I've started again, to be honest. I've just bitten it.
Man, I started again too.
It's just one hand, and I have no idea. Yeah, is it? I don't know.
No, but like usually we're having another conversation. We talk about we're doing something else. Maybe we're on the way somewhere, or we're walking somewhere, or we're making food, or we're covering a specific topic. Like
it's quite an exhaustive list. Yes.
This is the one time a week where we sit down and look at each other and speak to each other without any other distractions. Sometimes with notes prepared, sometimes with no notes prepared, but always with feelings prepared to share. It's nice, we're going to look back on this and think, wow, remember when we did that thing?
I'll never forget it, buddy.
Maybe we won't ever remember because we would have never stopped it. I feel like my brain's not working today. Jeff, you told me you wanted to share something with me.
I do, and I kind of want to share it with the listeners as well, because people might be interested. I was lucky enough to play a round of golf with my mate Sarantino the other day. Shout out to Sarantino. He's a long-term podcast fan.
Sato, how you going, Machana?
He's a lovely, lovely man, a beautiful soul, and one of the sweetest princes of the world. Watching him interact with the world is like a baby gorilla.
He is like a baby gorilla.
Meeting humans for the first time. You're like, you're a beautiful boy.
So much enthusiasm and so much wonder in his eye.
And strength.
Oh, God.
Sheer ape-like strength that you could rip your arms off. So we were playing golf, and we were a 3-ball, so we got paired up. There was another person that joined us, a person that was playing by themselves, and he joined, and we started chatting after a few holes, and it turns out this guy, he asked us what we all did, and we were chatting about everything else, and then we got to like hole 5 or something, and I said, what do you do? And he said, oh, I'm a doctor. I said, oh, wow. Would you have a specialist? Are you a specialist? And he said, I'm an infectious diseases specialist. And I said, oh, that's an interesting one. And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, it is. And I said, do you mind if I ask you some questions about COVID-19? And he said, no, not at all. I'm just discussing it. I was like, how was it this year for you? And he basically said that he was... he worked with policymakers here in WA a little bit and was kind of ready for the worst, but is really happy with how things have worked out here in WA and Australia. And he says that normally he would work with things like malaria and dengue fever and infections as well. Like infectious diseases doesn't mean like viruses and all sorts of other things, just that. It also means like infections and things you can get. And we had a bit of interesting conversation about it, but I asked him one particular question, and this is the first time I've ever heard it from someone where I haven't kind of been able to deny it. And I asked him what he thought the timeline of this whole thing was. And he said that this is more likely a 3 to 5 year problem than a 1 year problem, definitely. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, we've got a vaccine, this kind of thing's happening. And he said, 2021 is going to be all about fighting the misinformation that everyone publishes or that people share. To make the vaccine work, you need 60% immunity, which means you need to probably immunize 70% of the 80% of the population, because some people are going to react differently to the ability to build the immune cells for the vaccine. You've got to roll that out, and that's going to take time. People think we've got a vaccine and everyone just gets posted one and it's done. He said it's amazing what we've done here in Australia and New Zealand. And the requirement for a vaccine here is much less than it might be somewhere else. But wherever else in the world it's probably happening, it's going to get rolled out top down, and essential workers first, then probably age first. I said, when do you think we'll be traveling again? And he said, well, if you have to travel, you've got to travel, and it's up to you to take the risk and things like that. And I was like, okay, cool. But when do you think, I travel for music shows and festivals and stuff like that. And he said, oh, well, are shows happening in Australia at the moment? And I said, yeah, they're kind of happening. It's like, cool, yeah. Well, I think that kind of thing will be possible here. I said I was going to play in Adelaide on New Year's Day, and that's really exciting. He said, awesome, yeah. Take the proper precautions if you feel the need, but otherwise, out of the South Australia's COVID-free and basically safe and everything like that. But I said, what about Europe? What about the UK? And he said, one of the main places where things are happening at the moment. Yeah, probably maybe the end of next year. I think they might get stuff sorted out. And it really, the way he said that, in line with what he was saying about it being a 3 to 5 year thing, made me go, I've been able to deny believing things for a while because I'm lucky to live in a place that hasn't, if I'm perfectly fucking honest, we haven't really been affected by this thing. Not in the same way that anywhere else in the world has. Yes, there's always knock-on effects and everything like that, but on the ground, the concept of wearing masks and stuff is very, very foreign here. It's a thing that other people do. It affected other places. It's something we see on the news. It's something we read in the papers as we go about our basically day-to-day pretty normally. Hearing him say that, and very much in a pretty absolute way, like, yeah, maybe next year. And almost as though he was saying, like, I was like, when do you reckon as though I was asking when the next Olympics was and we didn't even have coronavirus and it was 2 years away, he'd be like, oh, is it 2 years away? I think it's 2 years away. As though it was just an event that was going to happen in 2 years. He had no urgency. He said, this is a thing that's going to take time. And for me, that was a real kick in the nuts because I keep thinking to myself, when am I going to read the headline that says we're going to be able to do this? When am I going to see the news article that gives me a timeline that has me being able to go to Europe in 6 months or even like 4 months or something like that? And this guy, sure, it's just one guy's opinion. And he even said, he goes, oh, I'm not a complete expert on this disease or anything like that. But if I had to guess in this realm, I would say it's like, yeah, that's the kind of a timeline you're looking at. And he also said, it's not just when you're allowed to travel, it's also when people will want to have you, and the security or the trust in travel restores. Like, you might be able to go to a place, but whether or not that place will be anything worth visiting, whether or not it'll be active as a place to visit, is another question. Like, I could go to London now, I'd have to do quarantine, or maybe I wouldn't, whatever. But, I don't get the experience of going to fucking Trafalgar Square, or, certain museums wouldn't be open, or like, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for us, we need festivals and nightclubs. So I don't know. Honestly, it was a pretty. I was playing shit golf as well, so it really didn't help. But it was like I was like quite dejected by the whole thing, because our livelihood certainly depends on the ability to gather in large groups and have things like festivals and stuff like that. And yeah, I just don't know if that's, I've been kind of like, yes, of course, something's going to give, this vaccine's going to change everything. But like, part of me goes, I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be more waiting.
I mean, that is kind of disheartening news. And to get it directly from the horse's mouth, or...
He was a horse, yes.
The mouth, this man, or this doctor, is... I don't know, it's like something coming from like a trusted source, right? Or somewhat more than a trusted source than your own research on news websites or
and it wasn't just someone at a party drinking and being like, I reckon we won't be able to go till next year.
Yeah, someone that you can just discount easily.
You can be like, where did you get the information? He said it in such a way like, yeah, well, next year, like that's when it makes sense to me, like the end of next year, I suppose.
Just before he got a par.
He actually did play well. He dropped the
end of 2020. Now watch me sink this putt.
Yeah.
Well, that's yeah, man. There was a part of me that thought, when we went into lockdown in March, I remember having conversations with maybe, my friends over here about doing shows at the end of last year. I was like, yeah, well, I guess all the festival shows will just kind of become club shows in November when clubs open back up. remember thinking that. And then I remember that not happening. And then, I played that show in Cologne. That was, we had to wear masks when we were walking around, and there was limited numbers. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll come back to Cologne in a couple of weeks and play another show then.
Or this is going to be the new standard.
At the moment, I believe Germany is in another lockdown, similar to the UK. And it's like, it's back. And we thought it was going to be better, but it's actually going to get probably worse. Yeah, I mean, it's disheartening. It is disheartening. You feel dejected. I kind of feel like, when you have a really serious phone call with someone, or someone breaks up with you.
Yes.
And you finally say goodbye, and you hang up the phone.
Yes.
And you're just sitting there like, oh. And like a wave of something kind of comes over you.
Yes.
It's more disenfranchisement. That's not a word.
For me, what it feels like is, the uncertainty. If I'm uncertain, I don't know. So I oscillate between yes and no. This is okay. This will all pan out in the end. This is going to happen. It's going to be cool. That will happen. This will happen, blah, blah, blah. Or like, this is bad, and feeling fucking terrible about it, and wondering, and just like wanting it all to be normal, quote unquote. And when I hear something like that, my natural inclination, rather than being like, 65-35 to positive, goes 60-40 to negative. Like, I will fall on the negative side of thinking about this. I'm like, fuck, I don't think that's going to happen. Like, I think about a booking that we might have in July for a summer festival. I'm like, I don't think Europe summer's going to happen.
Yeah. I got excited when I saw the announcement of hospitality, for instance.
I did too. And I thought in my head, I was like, they know something that we don't know almost. They don't, obviously, but they... Sorry, you go.
I had some sort of post or had some sort of interaction that said, like, I can't wait to play this show again. And then when we spoke about it on the podcast, you were like, yeah, man, it's going to be so good to play that show together, or like, I can't wait to be over there. And I remember thinking in my head, oh, Jeff thinks he's going to be able to come to Europe in July. And thinking, I don't think Jeff's going to be able to come to Europe in July at all. And then, but I still thought like, but I'll be able to fly.
And I'll be able to attend a festival with 10,000 people.
Yeah, and Jeff will do something in New Zealand, and I'll go do that show in Europe, because going to Europe will be easier from the UK, but I don't think Australians are going to be able to fly that easily. And it's funny how, we both kind of assumed something that wasn't maybe anywhere close to what the reality of it could be, which is there won't be any festivals this summer. And I mean, man, I oscillate too between feeling confident about it and feeling unconfident about the whole thing. Like, I speak to multiple people at multiple levels in the music industry, and their feelings are, no one really knows, but the optimistic people are the people that I'm trying to listen to more of, I guess. And I'm not particularly an optimist. I think I'm a pessimist, or at least an optimist in pessimist clothes, because I'm prone to kind of negative thinking and that kind of thing. And what I'm trying to do is to not entertain the negative thoughts, and so go about things as if we're both going to play that show. We're both going to play hospitality in the beach, and it's going to go ahead, and there's going to be more shows. But have that optimism with the caveat of, if that doesn't happen, it's not going to be the end of the world. Because I would much prefer to spend the next 4 months living in a world where that could possibly happen than to be living, and then it actually happens, so I'm prepared for it, than living in a world where everything is fucked and our careers are fucked and there's no point in doing anything anymore and blah, blah, blah. which is the alternative to it. So, yeah, I guess the only way forward is to think as positively as possible, but expect the unexpected, and not put all your eggs in the basket of things going to be normal in 6 months. But live in a world that's hopefully going to be normal. Because otherwise you'd just be like, I spent, a year and a half preparing for the worst, and then the worst came and I was so prepared for it. And then you still can't do anything about it. Like we said last week, you're not going to be able to land the fucking plane if the plane is crashing. So there's no point preparing anything.
But there's also no point in being the guy on the plane when the plane is crashing and standing up and being like, I told you so. No, exactly. Like, you don't get points for being right about something that's like quite obviously a boat crash of some sort.
I mean, what you need to do is strengthening your mind and strengthen your resolve and strengthen and build the reality in which you can live in as positively as possible. I mean, this goes on to what we were talking about last week. It might feel like we're in the piss trough at the moment. We may likely be in the piss trough, but you try to step out of it once or twice and try to get out of it as much as possible. I feel like the only way forward is accepting that things might not go the way we want, and then figure out things we can change or figure out things we can control. In 6 months' time, we could be having a conversation being like, fuck, well, I guess hospitality at the beach was cancelled. Fuck. Or we could be having a conversation that says, hospitality at the beach is cancelled, but we've also written an album in that time because we knew that was going to happen. Or I've learnt so much more about production because I've dedicated this time off to just learning about that, or something else, Yeah, I don't know if much of this is making sense.
It's the concept of who moved my cheese, basically.
Anyone that hasn't read that book should go read it.
I'm currently reading it with Holly.
Well, I wish I had my copy with me.
Do you have your copy of Turning Pro? My copy of Turning Pro?
I do have your copy of Turning Pro.
Nice one.
Yeah, I need to read it. It's on the list of things.
It's gonna take you a day and a half. Just read it.
Yeah, I'm actually not really enjoying the third book in the 1Q83 series. The 1Q84 series, sorry. It's not gripping me as much as the other two. I literally finished the first two books in like 3 or 4 weeks. Now, this one's really dragging on. Jeff, you wanted to discuss some highlights and lowlights of this year. So, I guess a lowlight for you, a recent one, would be the fact that you've been hit by a bit of a reality of COVID from this mysterious doctor you played golf with. What are some other lowlights?
I feel like you should play a little song here or something.
Like a happy song or a sad song?
Do a happy song for the happy ones and do a sad one for the lows. Okay, so we'll start with the lowlights. And do you want to go back and forth?
Yes, go. You go first, buddy.
The biggest thing that happened to me this year is both a lowlight and a highlight. Because it allowed for a massive change, a shift, if you will, but it was a painful thing. But I learnt that it's painful to grow. And if you want to grow, you probably have to go through some pain. And that essentially that the hurt and the pain is often the price of admission for growth and to go on the ride of growth and the ride of learning about yourself and other people. So yeah, I think my year started very wondrously, I suppose. It was very amazing. I was in a relationship that I was extremely happy to be in. and life was, for all intents and purposes, really good. I had some highlights in that time as well. I went to Japan with my then girlfriend and a few other people and stuff, and it was really great. But then the realities of COVID-19 started to hit in, and it felt like everything fell apart at once. The biggest thing probably because the reality of the way that this was going to impact our careers was a bit slower to hit. But the real sudden thing was that my relationship fell apart. And that led me to do a lot of soul searching, and that I think that term gets overused and it's become a bit of a cliche, but it's, because it can go from anyone from like a footy team to trying to win in the fourth quarter, like dig deeper, kids. Search your soul for the victory.
Come on, Macca, you've been a halfback for 40 years, mate. Search your soul for it.
Yeah, and also just overused in movies, but it really did. There's something about returning home to live with your parents and all of a sudden having nowhere else to go. And
it's very Richard Gere of you. Officer and a Gentleman reference there for anyone that hasn't seen the 1980 film. Sorry, Jeff, go forward.
And I was forced to, look introspectively at how I was doing things and how I might do things differently. And also just like, man, like the way I put it is like the universe has been trying to teach me this kind of a lesson for years. And finally I was sitting down and going like, all right, close the classroom door. I'm going to stay in the classroom and I'm going to learn.
I think that's you and breaking up is the best thing to ever happen to you, if I'm going to be honest. And that's not to say anything bad about her or your guys' relationship. Like I still love her. I actually need to call her. And I love you, but to see you come to me with some of the things you've come to me with this year and how introspective you've been and how much you've grown as a person and as a brother especially. Because before I've tried to be the catalyst for change in Jeff for 10 years and nothing that I could have ever done, no matter how much I said anything or no matter how many times we argued or no matter how many times I brought things up with you, I was the wrong person to get that push from.
But all of that helped in some weird way because it all pushed me closer to the edge of this thing.
Yeah. And then when you finally went over the edge.
And when I finally was on my own, I had all this other background information to look back on and be like, wow, I think this has been impacting me my whole life, essentially. Yeah.
I think it's amazing, man. Like, I think it's, you never would have come up with, and not even just the stuff between, exists in our relationship, but some of the childhood stuff that you've mentioned to me in the last couple of months, I think has been very insightful.
Yeah, I also think the ability to be vulnerable and be more comfortable with my feelings and more secure in the sharing of those feelings with people is absolutely a byproduct of losing something that was extremely important to me and then having to address what it was to generate my own love and, learn all the stuff. And I think that going through that pain, because it was more than just a breakup. It actually just highlighted so much stuff that I was not addressing. And it really gave me a chance to. And I remember speaking to one of our friends, Byron, about it, and he's like, this is really important. This is a big thing. This is a big deal. So, you're doing absolutely doing the right thing. And I treated it as such, and I did the work, and I still am doing the work, and I think it has changed who I am as a person and as a partner, and as a brother and as a son, as a friend, all that kind of stuff. And it's sharpened things that I like about myself, and it's dulled things that I don't. And it's not like I'm not allowed to feel things and I'm like hiding from them or something. I'm actually working on stuff, and I think that's an extremely, extremely important lesson to have learnt. So I suppose, that main low light of something that I thought was so good, losing that actually turned into being one of a real catalyst for change and a real inflection point in my whole fucking life, not just my year. So, and it's also given me, access to some of the highlights of my year. So I'll let you go with a low light of your year, and then we can continue that, and I'll come back to how it's led to the highlights.
A low light for me. I mean, this is very general. It's quite general. But it would have probably been, and I still don't know if I've come to terms with it, with the idea that I have failed being in the UK. And the idea that like I was sent off with so much promise, and now I reflected on the year kind of thing, and even though there's been so much stuff out of our control, there's the overarching feeling still in me that's like, oh, you failed. And I know that that's an unrealistic thought, and I know that's not a true thought. I know that's a judging thought. But I think the low light for me would have been having that thought multiple times during this year. And even though, we've had, when we get to successes, there's been heaps of successes this year, but I feel like I've dwelled and lived in a reality where I felt like a failure for too much of this year. And that made me feel pretty bad and pretty low. So I think that general, I mean, we talked about how long the kind of COVID thing has been going on for, and that type may go on for. I mean, and it's, I guess if yours is more of like a sharp cut and a sudden change that has impacted something, I feel like mine is more of a slow build-up of dirt on a car. And then one day you realize, you're like, oh, fuck, this car is dirty. I feel like it's been almost like I've done a little diagram on my notes here that's just a line that goes down. It's just a line that goes down. And I think it's that main idea has kind of poisoned the well of Jonathan this year. And it's, and as I said,
can I tell you something?
Yeah.
You have not failed at all, Jono. You have not failed is the last thing that you have done if I could give you a report card, you would not have an F or a D or an E or a C for that matter for anything that you've done in this past year. You have been more resilient than most people I know that would have done in your situation. And you've also done a lot of learning as well. And I think you're still doing the learning and you're still unwrapping the gifts of what this anguish and so-called failure will give you, because this all happens for a reason, and this is where you are at the moment. But it to sit there and say, I feel like I failed. It's okay to feel like that, but just know that you absolutely haven't. You've put up an amazing fight. You've done all sorts of different things. And I think what you may have learnt about yourself is that you are maybe a little bit more... You're more resilient than you thought, but you're also fucking frustrated with how everything's panned out.
Yeah.
Because as much as everyone, the concept of who moved my cheese is the ability to pivot and move on when changes occur, you're a bit stuck to be able to make a change. So you've kind of had to literally, when life gives you lemonades, you make lemonade. But you've also, just had to do with what you will, and also had your reality pushed up right up into your face. And one of the biggest things that I can see you having to suffer is the absolute expectations like falling apart in such a dramatic way.
Yeah.
Like your expectations of moving to the UK, and when you came back for Christmas last year and then you were returning back, and the expectations built and built and built, and you were in denial for a while about this whole thing. And then you didn't know what was kind of going on, and you were catching up with your own self for the longest time. And then, you have not failed at all, but in your own way, you've been on your own journey of discovery.
Yeah. And I don't think, again, I don't think I have failed. I can logic myself out of that. If I make a list of things that I've done this year, positives, highlights, lowlights, when we were talking about doing this, I made some highlights and made me reflect on some great things. And, even if you think about things we've done professionally this year, I think we've had a fucking great year, especially compared to some other people. And even personally, in the circumstances, I've had a fucking great year. I think it's just that those times of all the low points have been moments where I've been like, couldn't shake the feeling that I felt like I fucked it up. I think, and that I feel I can, think of 2 or 3 moments in the last 3 months where I've been struck with that feeling and really couldn't shake it.
That you've caused this.
Not that I've caused this, but like this like extreme judgment on myself, like you could have done more. Yeah, and I don't, as I said, I don't consciously think that I think I blame myself for things pretty quickly. I've actually been doing, in my journal, I've been writing I've just been questioning stuff. You know, as you do at the end of your day, you question why you felt certain things at certain times. And there's been a bunch of occasions where I've blamed myself for something, even though there is nothing I could have done about it, or it wasn't even my fault, or it's not even my responsibility. But I put myself in so much pain because I want to. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why. If it's something to do at work, and something goes wrong at work, I'm so quickly to apologize for it and be like, "Oh, that's my fault," even though it might have nothing to do with me. Or if someone is not having a good day and I have an interaction with them and the interaction isn't super positive, I'm very quick to be like, that's my fault, even though it's got nothing to do with me.
There's definitely a lot of judgment on you at the moment because it's hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of judgment.
Because you want to be secure in your self almost, and it's tough to be secure in yourself if you believe, if the first stop of every communication is, ooh, you might have done something wrong there.
Yeah, I feel like my security, it's weird because this year I've felt more secure in myself because I've been stood up against issues and been by myself more and become more independent and exercised more resilience than I thought I had. But at the same time, it's highlighted things that have actually shaken me a bit more than I would feel comfortable. And it's weird, like I'm ending the year with this weird, like, you know, sometimes I feel extreme confidence and comfortable with myself and all these things, but at the same time I feel I've never felt like I'm on more shaky ground.
Yeah.
And it's weird, it's a very weird feeling when you feel you're either solid or your grounding is shaking like an earthquake. And I feel like I've gone between those two rather than before where maybe I was on one ground and it was kind of, you know, it was kind of steady, but sometimes it would shake a little, but it was one thing. I feel like I've gone to the two extremes a lot more this year.
Yeah.
And can even go to two extremes within a day. You know, I think
that's what the uncertainty of your current situation really does. And this is where it's not that I struggle to empathize in that, like, understanding how you feel, or I sympathize with you, but it's tough to empathize with you because I haven't suffered. I haven't gone through. I'm not living what you're living.
It's weird. I feel like this year has forced everyone to, you know, a breakup forced you to look more internally into yourself and maybe shine light in parts of you that you didn't want to face. And my breakup was COVID, this situation, and everything that it has brought to me. And whether that's, you know, being forced into situations where I didn't really feel comfortable and realities were brought to me where truths were brought out in life. And they weren't as sudden, but they were kind of a bit more gradual and has made me definitely think and question and some things in my life and about myself. Yeah, so you know, ultimately, again, it's like it's a positive. It's a positive. At the end, it's a positive thing.
But have you learnt the things? Have you learnt from it, or are you still a little bit
learning.
in the... Yeah, that's good.
I'm learning. I'm in the, you know, I draw the...
For the listener, the line goes from left to right and it goes down on a 45-degree angle.
It's like an upside-down triangle.
It's bottoming out and swooping up.
And I think I've probably bottomed out already. I think I bottomed out probably a couple of weeks ago. When we first had that initial conversation about how I wasn't particularly happy, I think that recognizing the fact that you weren't particularly happy is bottoming out. And now making the decision that that's not going to be the way you live anymore. I think, or maybe it's not necessarily bottoming out. It's more of just like there's a bit of a plateau down the bottom.
Yeah, but plateaus often occur just before growth happens. That's the key.
I always go back to exercise. It's just such a good example. You don't feel like you're doing good until a month of doing exercise, and then you're like, oh no, wait, I kind of know how to do this. And then after 2 months, you feel a bit more comfortable, and then after 3 months, you realize that you do know how to do this, and you can start seeing the changes. Delia sent me our Icelandic friend, our Icelandic sister, as I like to call her.
Shout out to Delia. I need to talk to her. She
sent me a good kind of flow chart, if you will. I'll just bring it up so I can read it. It's just like it's a 4-way for the listener. It goes up and then to the right and then down again. And it's like a little graph that says consciousness on one side, competence on the other side. And it goes, level 1 is unconsciously unskilled, and then goes to level 2, consciously unskilled, level 3, consciously skilled. The previous one was level 2. And then level 4, unconsciously skilled. And I think this is it's a great little chart for anything. It applies to learning a new skill, but if the new skill you're learning is kind of bettering yourself and working on yourself, which I think everyone is kind of attempting to do, then I feel like I'm probably at somewhere between unconsciously unskilled and consciously unskilled, and even consciously skilled. Like I'm just somewhere on this fucking chart. It's probably actually too difficult to break down exactly where I am.
I understand,
but there's things I do unconsciously that's really good, and then there's still things I have to do consciously that I'm not particularly good at. So I think this year has been a big year of learning, and low light would have probably been being forced to face things that have probably bothered me for years.
Which, like you said, has been a bit of a highlight. Another low light to just keep the mood down. Watching the shows disappear for me was like, what the fuck's happening? This is not fair. This is not fair. What the fuck? No, this is temporary. This is not a big deal. Wait, no. Oh, fuck. Like, it feels like, Jono, I think this is the first time I've ever said this publicly, but you and I have joked for a long time that imagine our success continues on a steady build, a nice, 60-degree angle up over time. And as we start to reach our full potential, the world will end. Like, we've joked about that, haven't we? We've said that someone would be like, we'd love to sign $1 million contract with you and you can do this and you'll be doing this, this and this. And someone's like, the meteorite is 3 days away. We can pay you to soundtrack the meteorite crashing into the earth. And then you're just like, wow, it was all for nothing. I mean, but it's not all for nothing. It's all the journey, obviously. But we've joked about that. That's something we've talked about several times, probably more than several.
Because we're definitely prone to the dramatic.
It's also a funny concept, as we're quite the journeymen in this game. We've been honing our craft for a while. So as this all fell apart, I was like, but of course this is part of the story. It's like, yeah, of course it is. And now as it starts to come back, especially for me, I'm like, and this is part of the story too. Like, and now, we haven't had it and now we're going to get it back and we're, doing this stuff, because all of this stuff has given me more independence, Jono. One of the things, one of my highlights is that I've gained more independence and autonomy from Ekko and Sidetrack almost.
Yeah.
We both have, and it's been really good.
And from each other, man. Like, think how much time we used to spend with each other.
Many hours.
Way too much. And now that we're like, you know, we're separate people. We're not as joined as the hip as we once were.
I don't believe that I would have been able to go through some of the experiences I went through this year if you had have been here. And I sincerely believe that you're the same.
Yeah, I agree.
If you had have had your older brother here trying to tell you what to do, it would have been business as usual, and I would have resisted shit from you, and you would have resisted shit from me, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And this growth apart has actually been probably us getting closer in some ways, but becoming more of our own separate people.
I think so. I totally think so.
Yeah.
Which is another highlight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
it's funny how there's always a highlight in the lowlights. Even as we're talking and we're finding highlights, we're finding the positive in the negative experience. Maybe I'm not as pessimistic as I think I am in my head, because there's always silver lining, and I do always find the silver lining in most things.
I think all this has led me to be able to be a better person, to be able to set myself up to meet someone who is more on my level this year, towards the end of this year. And it's been like extremely healthy and exciting to see some of the work that I've done put into practice and like reap rewards. And you're like, oh wait, yeah, this is a good thing. I'm really glad, like, wow, this situation just happened, and this is how it might have panned out previously, but it's worked out differently, and this is better, this is way better, like, wow. And if it all couldn't have happened but for all the crazy events that cascade into this year. Another amazing highlight, again from a low light, is my journaling practice and my morning pages. I would not have. It's been something I've wanted to do for years. I think journaling would be really cool and would give me a lot of space to think and all sorts of things. But it took having everything taken away from me to be like, I need to reflect on this, and I need to write, and and what's funny is that when I did, it all just came out of me in this amazing way, whether it was the morning pages in the morning or the reflections at night. It's all been incredibly helpful, and now I have a record of these moments in my life and lessons that I've learned. So that's an incredible highlight for me.
Oh, that is a gift. That is a big gift. One of my highlights, this is a bit more practical, would be playing in France, in Paris.
Yes.
That would have been in February.
Well, February.
And that would have been the last show I played. And it was, oh man, I had so much fun. So I spent 3 days there. So I went over and stayed with my friend Lloyd, and his partner Nomi, and that was something we talked about doing last year at Sam and Shannon's wedding. He was like, I live in France. And I was like, I'd love to come visit, man. And he's like, I'd love to come to one of these shows. And so I went over and I just got to stay with him and like see a bit how he lived. And we went out for fondue in this like underground basement of this old French restaurant and got wine and went to a cocktail bar and drank and then woke up and had like croissants and macaroons and cheese and bread for breakfast and just like walked around Paris getting coffee. And then I went up and Baldwin, one of the Liquidity guys, came down to see me.
Shout out to Boo, my boy.
It's actually his birthday today as well, so happy birthday, Boo.
Oh, what?
And he was like, "Oh, if you're, if you play in Europe sometime, let me know and I'll come to the show." Because it was going to be a while until we saw each other in Holland. So he came down, and we just had, Boo was there at the show. Lloyd and Naomi came. So I had like 3 friends instantly at that Paris show. And it was just a great fucking night, man. It was a great night. I met
Serum, Prolix.
Yeah, Prolix. I met Prolix, who's a lovely guy. QZB, one of the QZB guys, who was lovely. Serum, who was lovely.
I remember seeing videos, like waking up. This was kind of the rhythm of that period. Like, you'd do something on the weekend and I'd wake up and there'd be like, you'd have filled the Instagram stories with it. And I remember waking up and being like, oh, sick, that looks like a good show. Like, oh man, that he's doing us so proud. Like, we're doing it. It just made me all the time be like, we're doing the thing.
And now it's a similar feeling to when I wake up and see all your Instagram stories. And you're doing the thing.
We're doing the thing.
We are doing the thing. We're doing the thing. And I just remember laughing heaps with Border and all the guys. And then on the Sunday, we all met up again because I stayed at the hotel with same as Baldwin. And then Baldwin got to meet Lloyd and Naomi. And they met briefly the night before, but then like we all hung out on the Sunday. We got falafel and coffee, and then we had some beers. And it was just like meeting just like 2 of your friends that don't have anything to do with each other that then meet and then they get along.
That's one of my favorite things in the world.
It's just a beautiful way to tie up a fucking weekend. And I remember sitting, having a beer. We were hungover. We were having a beer at like 3 at a Brewdog in Paris. And maybe Baldwin was like, should we get another beer? And there was that feeling of like, oh man, we're going to get like a little drunk this afternoon before I go catch a train back home. Like, yeah, let's get another beer. And then we had 2 more beers, and then there was that feeling of like, the weekend's not over. We're doing it. I'm in Paris. The girl behind the bar was beautiful. When I asked for her number, she had a boyfriend, but she was very nice about it and very kind. And it was just a fucking great weekend. There was just nothing bad about that weekend. I remember coming home and being like, I did it. That's how you do a fucking show. We talked about how we would always do shows around like holidays or trips or seeing friends at the same time, and that's ultimately the goal of moving forward with doing gigs. You'd always maybe
is to be able to stay for an extra day.
You'd always book an extra day, and you'd go do stuff and see the town or city you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it. You had the thing, and you were like, this is man, I remember you telling me about the gigs you had booked, and I was thinking like, man, should I come over for one of those gigs? And like, you were going to come back here and we were going to go to New Zealand, and I was just like, it's all happening.
Yeah, having the whole summer taken away from us and not being able to see you and having that whole plan kind of shift and change completely was difficult.
Yeah, and it just kept falling out like quicksand, man. Like, oh, nah, that's going to go ahead. Oh, no, they're going to postpone it. It's been cancelled.
Yeah.
I I remember chatting to you when I was in Japan, man. It was in March, the end of March 5th.
Yeah.
At the airport, and me being like, I think this is a bigger deal than we think, man.
I
think this is going to...
Thinking about wearing a mask or not. You're like, I'm going to buy a mask before I go to Japan.
I got lots.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a great show on the weekend, John. You talking about friends getting together and partying and stuff like that. Having Byron and Gianna there, and having Holly and her friend Nat, and then having Sarah and Dan with their wives, and then we all had heaps of fun. They all got on amazingly, and then we all went to Uncle Billy's afterwards and drank beer and ate Chinese food and laughed. And I was like, these are all people I really, really like getting together and so effortlessly. It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. That photo you sent me. That photo you sent me was so funny. And seeing all those people together really did make my heart soar. And just seeing seeing all the videos of you playing and so many people there and smashing and all the positive feedback. And then you ended it with such a somewhat of a responsible, beautiful friendship dinner. I think that's just fucking awesome. Yeah, man. That's beautiful. That's what it's all about. You combine friendship and music together, and that's what you get. You get a fucking beautiful 24 hours. And my 24 hours was beautiful in that time as well, because I was combining music and friendship. But when I started getting those videos coming through, I was actually super hungover at Max's house, watching Saving Private Ryan and eating McDonald's, which was beautiful. I haven't eaten fucking McDonald's in so goddamn long, but just like fully embracing the hangover with Max and laughing and.
Oh, you would have been getting it would have been Boxing Day, 9 hours behind.
Yeah.
So you would have been 12 in the afternoon.
I was in the thick of it.
You were just hungover as sin, and you'd be like, "What's all these fucking notifications?"
It was, but it was sick. It was really nice.
And you're like, "Oh, Jeff's making loud noises."
I think there's been much more positives out of this year than there have been negatives.
I think the music we've written has been really on a really great level. I think we should have, if I could reflect, I think we should have written more. We could have written more, but I think some of our circumstances have really not allowed us to. I don't think we've handled that as well as we could, but I think we've got some amazing music out there at the moment, and we've released some amazing music that I'm extremely proud of. So
2021 might be similar in terms of its world, things that are going, maybe similar in, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I really do think my brain is broken today. It's not broken. It's just having a bit of time off. 2021, the world circumstances might be similar to 2020, but I think our mental circumstances are going to be different. It's been a year of strengthening. It's been a year of reflection.
Forging
new paths.
Hammering the sword.
Yeah.
To harden and sharpen it.
Man, we've it's important to remember that there's been many times this year where we've made small, even if they've been small changes, but they've been changes that have diverted our path ever so slightly at the time of making them. But as the months move on, you see how much diversion you've actually made and how much change and how much positive impact those changes have made. Even with my journaling practice has only been going on for 2 months. But I've written every night for 2 months since the 1st of November.
It's great.
I did have 2 nights off over Christmas when I was extremely drunk.
I have some nights off. I have some mornings off, and I try and catch up, or I'll just write like a a blanket statement, like,
Yeah.
write three pages about the last 4 days or something. I just try and...
But that's a change that I feel, even after 2 months, I feel it impacting my life for the better.
That's great.
And there would have been, I don't know, there's unconscious changes that both of us would have made a long time ago that, in 3 years we'll be like, fuck, thank God for 2020. And I think a lot of people are going to be saying that.
I've already said it, man. I'm extremely grateful for everything I've gone through this year and everything that I have currently got. And I wouldn't change it.
Ooh, would you?
Nah, I wouldn't, because the other version, the other version doesn't exist, but the other version probably leads. It's the I get more of what I think I want,
Not what you
but
need.
actually it's not what I need. No, and what I think I want now, I go, I know I want that stuff, and I'm going to get it in a different way. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. I believe that our career is not stalled, paused, or anything. It's just like it's taken a bit of a turn, and our industry has taken an incredible hit and everything. But this is now the climate that we work in, and we can sit around and try and get other people to change things for us, or we can change things for ourselves.
Dad gave me a bit of wisdom when I had a phone conversation with him today. And he asked me about what my plan was for 2021, and I kind of said some things to him. And he was like, this all sounds good, sounds great, but just be aware of how many things you have going on that needs someone else to act in them. Like
the script you're working on, that's not just a single man show.
No, like, I outlined some things, and he was like, that they're all good, but it sounds like you're waiting. Some of those things you're waiting for someone to do something. They're not just personal actions that you can do. So, I mean, this is just an example. I will, all the gyms are closed. If I said, I can't work out until I have a 16 kilo kettlebell that I can do what I do with, that would be me saying that I can't act until something else happens. But in reality, I can work with the kettlebell I have here in my home, and I can do that exercise in my home. So there's a couple of things in 2020 that I've kind of set out that are like that. And he just said, just make sure there's something in there that you can act on right now and for yourself. And that's completely for yourself. It doesn't involve Jeff. It doesn't involve anyone else. It's just for you. And whether that thing is like a small thing or whether it's a bigger thing, and just make sure there's something in there that you can take charge for yourself. And it made me look at some of the things that I've got planned and look at them and go, oh, wow, okay, he's right about that thing. Sounds like I'm waiting around for that to happen, whereas I should just be lead to action.
I will say, Jonathan, that's been a pretty common storyline in your life throughout the years. Like, you've often been like, when I get this, I'll do that. And then you get that thing and you're like, cool, when I get the other thing, I'll be able to... And I'm like,
Man, I've in some of the writings that have come out recently, do you want me to read you a passage from the journal?
only if you're comfortable to do it. Or you can edit it out, I suppose.
Why would I take on more responsibility for things and feelings of other people when you struggle to even manage the responsibility you have? It's like collecting sample packs, but not ever using any of them. Or adding films to your watch list on Netflix, but never actually watching any of them. At the moment, you have become a collector of things but not a fuck my handwriting's bad.
Man, journaling has made me want to improve my handwriting so I can read it back.
My handwriting has actually gotten a lot better since I started, but it's kind of bad. I've become a collector of things, but not a inducer of that information. Buying 12 Rules of Life didn't make me more of a responsible adult, although part of me thought it would.
Yeah, it's like buying the step-by-step book on how to do this thing. It's like buying a recipe book and never cooking any recipe from it. But you're like, I like the way it looks on my wall.
One needs to go one step further with all these things. Just one more step, just one more page, just one more chapter. And then you are on the path to feeling contentment. Yeah, Night Thoughts, bang. Got the same journal. Great minds.
I bought 4 of them.
Yeah, I bought the whole pack. I bought Night Thoughts, Journeys, and then the green one.
These are my journals.
The diary that we both reference, that we both have, we bought from a Dutch shop called School of Life. You can buy them online. They're really good. I got a pack, one that says Night Thoughts, one that says Journeys, and a green one that says Travel, I believe. I think I've had a bit of a lazy mind this year, and I want to better that. Realizing
that we are prone to that.
Yeah.
Is incredibly insightful. So I think that's only going to help us to I suppose come to the conclusion, because it seems like all our lowlights actually gave birth to our highlights in some weird ways. So I write a page or two on the last quarter, and then I write like prediction words for like Q4. One was more realizations of I'm right where I'm meant to be. Resilience, go big or stay small. Priorities changing, new friends. The edge is where the action is. Go there. Like, just like little things, and they're all written down pretty quickly, just like what I'm feeling after I've reflected on the last quarter. So I'll do the same thing in a few days. So I was wondering if you had some words that are going to push you and lead you in the new year, and also that one thing you're going to do, that one goal.
Well, you said one the other day, just before, that said it's painful to grow, which I've written down. Another one is that I am loving awareness, which is a Ram Dass quote, which I like to remind myself of. Things take time is another one. Remember laughter as well. Like, honestly, man, you make me laugh more than anyone else in this world. And I've had some good laughing sessions while I've been over here, but none to the degree that and on the frequency as I would if I was home. I actually feel like I've almost had a taste of what regular people feel like that aren't lucky enough to spend as much time with an extremely funny sibling.
I tend to agree.
So maybe that's just remember laughing. I don't know. It's odd for me not to laugh hysterically nearly every day, and that's kind of what's been missing in my life. So remember to laugh is one. Man, most of it's just about self-love stuff, and like it's okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. That's really positive, and just keep reminding yourself that it is okay and that you are enough, and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
What's the thing you'd like to do? And this can be big or small, or just something just like, fun little prediction.
I want to get better at playing the piano. That's one thing. And then another thing is that I want to go on a holiday without a phone, without a computer, to somewhere that I've never been before. And I want to go there with only a tote bag.
What's the obsession with traveling with a tote bag?
It started when I went to Cologne with Jake for a show, and Jake had bought a new bag, and it was like a travel bag, and I just had a backpack, and I was like, man, it just doesn't feel right. The backpack's so bulky, and he had a nice travel bag, and he's like, yeah, man, it's a new bag. I bought it for my birthday, and I was like, the next step is to only travel with a suit hanger that you fold in half, and then that's like, we're just talking about like the ultimate travel man kind of things, like travel light. The idea of traveling light. And and then I was kind of said like, yeah, I've got some notepads in here. I've got a book. I always travel with lots of shit just in case. So, and I just said like, I wish I could travel somewhere with just a tote bag. And we were talking about places we could travel with a tote bag to. But I want to get on a plane and I want to go to Greece or Spain with 2 shirts, 1 pair of shorts, 1 pair of underwear, and one book, and maybe some headphones, and my bottle, and maybe some. I'm just adding stuff, and just go there and just be like, "Yep, this is me. This is me for a week."
Why don't you do it?
Yeah, I mean that's a goal. Hopefully that can happen.
Okay.
What's your goal for 2021? What's the thing you want to do?
I'd like to play a show with my brother.
Wow. Got me right in the heart there, buddy. I went for quite a selfish one. And you just got me right in the heart.
Not intentionally. It's just what I really want. One of the things.
I think that can happen. There might be some quarantining involved, but
I know it can happen. And I want to continue with my growth, and I want to I feel like there's more evolution and more fine-tuning what I'm working on, and then like grabbing some more stuff and wanting to work on that.
So fine-tuning.
Yeah, and also and understanding music more, and living a more adaptable life that has both, and finding that balance between routine and flexibility. And that goes in so many things. And another one, a goal for last year. I tend to write my goals in like weird little catchphrasey things.
Mm-hmm.
One of my goals was to, and I'll have to reflect on this, because I think actually I inadvertently succeeded in a bunch of my goals. I know one of them was for sure spend more time with mum and dad, and become better friends with them, and I absolutely did that.
Would you say dad's your best friend then?
We're definitely buddies. He's given me some great advice, and we've had some amazing conversations and spent some time that has been significantly more adult to adult than adult to child.
That's good.
Than maybe previous. Yeah, it's been great. Same with me and mum. But one of my things for this year that I didn't kind of get to, but I want to get to next year, is read the instructions. And that is the ability to follow and do something all the way through. Or that could even be as simple as knowing how to do something rather than just like bullshitting my way through it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a
big one.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking a lot about as I gain more experience in things. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how things are going at the moment, and I'm really happy with my lot in life, and I'm, grateful for everything I've been through and am going through. So, yeah, here's to 2021, and yeah, it's an exciting time.
I think 2021 is going to be good.
I know 2021 is going to be good, Jonathan. 2020 was great.
2020 was great, and 2021 will be even better.
Just like to say thank you for all the support you've given us, you dear listener who's gotten to the end of this podcast, and whenever you're listening to it as well, because I know not, people listen at various times, and especially around this time of year, I don't listen to many podcasts. I don't have much time to listen to podcasts. So you might not be listening to this till mid-January, but whatever you've been through and let wash over you, know that it's only, sometimes it's easy to think that things wear us down, but actually maybe they're shaping us into the kind of things we're meant to be.
It's a great way to think about it. It's only making us harder, making us stronger, making us more resilient, better prepared for the next time we experience pain, or we experience loss, or we experience hardship. I think a lot of things in retrospect will be a little bit easier after this year.
I think there's a kind of concept is that like a catastrophe is defined after the fact.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what a catastrophe, if it's a catastrophe at all at the time, but it's like how you deal with it and the fallout from it. So some people were pretty quick to rush. Some people were pretty quick to judge 2020 and say it's been an absolutely terrible year and everything like this. But I think if a lot of people did think about it a bit more, they'd be like, this has been a tough year, but it's really had its benefits, and I'm coming out the other side. Yeah, harder, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah. And with that, Jeff, I bid you farewell. Thank you for your voice of reason, your advice, your wise words, and your friendship and love this year, which has really meant a lot to me. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And it means a lot to me, John. I love you from the bottom of my heart. You're a beautiful soul, and you have not failed at all. You are winning constantly. Isn't that what it's what's he say? Was it Roosevelt or something? Winston Churchill, Jonathan, said that success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. And that's basically what you're doing, and that's what we're all doing. And so when you identify something as a failure, it's really good, because it means that you're learning, winning. Because if we had this amazing winning year, we might not have learnt half the shit we were meant to learn.
Yeah.
And it might have hurt extra special. It would have hurt even more when things didn't work out in the future.
100%.
All right, buddy. I love you. I'll chat to you soon. I'll chat to you next year.
I love you too, buddy. Yes, see you next year, man. See you next year, listeners.
Woo!
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on your podcast app and keep up to date with all new episodes. They're going to be coming out once a week. We are Ekko and Sidetrack on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we are Ekko Sidetrack. Go listen to our music on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, or wherever your ears consume happiness. Lots of love, people.